Hey, y'all, come on in. Let me know if everyone can see the title. As always, to anyone who's going to be watching this on YouTube, please keep your comments about my makeup to yourself. I don't really care how you feel about it. Oh, y'all can't see the title? All right, let me see if I can fix it real quick. Oh, thank you, Retro. Okay. All right, how about this? Hey, Black Phillip. Yeah, I'm just getting ready to make a couple more videos today, and so I just figured I would hop on here real quick to talk about this growing trend of videos I've seen come up on my For You page from other female creators talking about how decentering men content is like actually dumb because it centers men. And I'm afraid it's just a case of like internet brain, but I think it's still important to address and talk about, because this is, just so y'all know, this kind of rhetoric is going to get shoved down your throats. And as a millennial, I remember this very well, because this is where we started. This is right where we started, right? It was all about, when I was growing up, it was all about female empowerment, and it was not considered cool to like bash on men and all this kind of stuff. And that is how we ended up right back here. That's why people are in a milkmaid dress at the club. Okay. That's why Nara Smith and Ballerina Farms are taking over TikTok. This is why, Christianity is coming back en vogue, because all of a sudden the girlies want to make it seem like it's actually super uncool to talk about decentering men, or to talk about all the ways in which men actually do affect our life. No matter how much we try to center ourselves, we have to acknowledge that it oftentimes backfires because men don't decenter men, and because like it's very, very hard to go against the grain when you're not like sure which grain you're going against. I really hope that makes sense. But it's like, the advice usually is, well, just center women instead, like center yourself. Like, okay, but as opposed to what? Like, if that was a factory setting, well, it is a factory setting, but if that was like possible in our world, we wouldn't be having these conversations, like any of them, right? The centering men conversation, the decentering men conversation, and the conversation about how decentering men actually isn't cool. We wouldn't be having any of these conversations if decentering men and like women centering themselves. Hey y'all. Okay, let me read some of the comments. Obviously the stuff with ICE, y'all, I can't even wrap my head around this, because I grew up in Ukraine. Enough said. So I stand very much against it. Obviously, F that stupid orange a-hole, and F anybody who agrees with any of this dumb crap, which ironically is mostly Christians. I think there's a lot more helpful voices out there other than mine that actually have like the resources and stuff on hand that they can recommend. So just keep an eye out. Hey Dre. Yeah, so something really cool says decentering men content is so important. They are just trying to undermine its value. I couldn't agree more. And I just think it comes from like a kind of a selfish place. I also think that being online in this day and age has made being like contrarian, or being sort of like ahead of the curve, and being able to say I told you so later on, like it's made it kind of something that a lot of people want, So I literally just feel like, sometimes people are sitting there thinking like, how can I be a devil's advocate today? And it's like, especially to the women that are doing this, the devil has enough advocates. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like at some point you kind of get lost in the sauce. Like, that's one thing I really try not to be like, that's one thing I try to be really aware of. And I try to keep all my takes like very sociological and very grounded and stuff like that, because a lot of this conversation devolves into like men are demons and stuff like that. And it's like, I've spoken about the parallels of that. I have, and I don't disagree. But I do think it's like, at the end of the day, behavioral issue. I'm not going to go down, some of the more extreme like iterations of this movement. And I also think like, a lot of women say that stuff and it's not really supposed to be taken literally. So let's keep that in mind too. Yeah, so Dre says we center men by default in this society. So we need to actively talk about it to not do it. And that's exactly what I'm getting at. It's like if we stop pointing out the things that men get to do and like benefit from, and like the ways in which things are uneven between men and women, then basically the men win, because it's literally like they're so frustrating because everything is a tug of war with them and you can never let up. That's the thing. And that's why like my general stance on all that is it's not about decentering men. It's about we have too many men. Like as long as we have this ratio, this is where I go off the rails for some people, and that's fine. But as long as we have the same ratio of men and women on our planet, things will stay just like this. So we might as well keep making content about decentering men, because this is how it's always going to be. They're born with a need to center themselves. And there are scientific studies on this. Like I said, I keep it very sociological. I'm not saying any claims. I'm not making any claims that are not grounded in literal scientific reality. So if you read the study, The Fragile Male by Sebastian Kramer, that study confirms what I just said, that men are born with a need for more attention than women. They're born with like higher level of needs. And for that reason, we will continue to center them as a society because we can't escape that fact. Coeli says it's the same as the All Lives Matter crowd. Yeah, if we don't talk about, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this word on live, if you can believe it or not, but gracism, maybe it will just go away. Exactly. Reba says men don't hold men accountable at all. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like that's who's going to do it. Then who's going to talk about the unfair advantages that men have in society? Like people are literally talking, women, mind you, I would not even care about this if this was men yapping about stop talking about decentering men because it actually centers men. My thing is there's a boot on your neck and you're like, why are you talking about the boot? You know, you're just centering the boot. Like how the fuck? What do you mean? What do you mean? Right? Like, yeah, we kind of got to center the boot to get it off our neck. Like to decenter it, we must first shine a light on why it shouldn't be that way, right? It's like, because honestly, it's because some people don't know that there's a boot on their neck. You know what I mean? Like a lot of women, you know, are literally born into the expectation that they're going to center men and uphold the patriarchy. And they are taught to live that way step by step by step by step. Right? Nobody, not a lot of people, and I won't say nobody because it is no longer this way, but very few people are going to hand their baby boy a little baby doll, right? Right out the gate when he's like 2 or 3 years old. Very few people are going to put their little boy into a play kitchen, right? Very few people are going to ask their little boy to change before older female relatives come over. And all of those are instances of centering men, right? Like, come on. Paperweight says, are you going to do a video on the new Sabrina Carpenter song, Man Child? Sure, I've done a couple videos on her songs, specifically that Don't Embarrass Me, Mother Trucker song. And yeah, I think a lot of her music is like watching canon events happen to like a 20 through 28-year-old. It's very funny. T-Mac says, what do you do for work, if you don't mind me asking? I'm a producer. Julia says, it's taken so much intentional work to decenter men. I'm still not there yet. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like we really have to like examine all of the things that we do and really figure out who or what we're doing them for. Because a lot of times at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I'm just doing this so that like I don't accidentally disrupt the male gaze. You know what I mean? Like one time, like I prefer to like shave my body because I have sensory issues and I do like hot exercise every day. It is just a personal preference. And so, but one time I like it was winter, you know, I hadn't done it in a few days and I accidentally started one of my videos with like, I was putting my hair up or something. So I like lifted up my arms and you could see there was like hair under there. And I saw that watching it back and I was like, the year is 2025. What's the big deal, right? I'm gonna show my armpits and there's gonna be a little bit of hair. And boy, was I fucking wrong about that. I got so many comments from men being like, oh, I saw the armpit hair and I stopped listening and like da da da. That's the kind of shit that will make you, you know what I mean? That's the kind of shit that will make you spend so much time, right? Like, because without knowing that that's weird, right? Like, I didn't think even for the longest time to question why the fuck men even get to have an opinion or preference on our body hair, since they just let theirs grow out. So like, how the fuck, what place are you coming from to talk to me about my body hair when you don't even shave yours? You don't even know what that would be like. You know what I mean? And it's never like it comes across as a preference. It comes across as like you're a dirty, like disgusting person. And it's like, cause like, you know, women have preferences on men's facial hair, but first of all, men don't really take those into account because they'll be doing crazy shit with their facial hair. And second of all, it's very different how women come towards it, because we don't call it like unhygienic or something like that, or like not, you know, not masculine or something. Whereas like whenever we don't shave our armpits, it's like you're dirty, you're gross, you're unhygienic. And the person saying it has literally a full bush of hair in their fucking armpit, talking about you're unhygienic. Well, then you, sir, need to stay 700 feet the fuck away from me if I'm unhygienic with this much. You know what I mean? They're fucking crazy. All right, Yes says, I think it's talking about men all day, but women are programmed to think of men from early on. Absolutely. Like, even if a woman decides to like decenter men completely, right? She goes full 4B movement and says she wants to go and get her tubes tied because she knows for a fact she doesn't want children. And on the off chance that, you know, she gets assaulted and maybe she lives in a state where she can't, you know, get that taken care of. Well, now she wants to go get her tubes tied. Well, guess what her doctor is going to effing tell her? Right? Guess what questions the doctor is going to have for her? Guess what? That some women are told you have to wait 10 more years. You have to wait until basically you're infertile for us to tie your tubes. How do you talk about that without talking about how men are forcefully centered in our life? Like, that's crazy. Ruby says, we can't just ignore the things they do. Pointing things out is part of becoming aware of it. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Because it's like the men are still out here acting like men. Like, what do you mean? Just because we've decentered them, or just because we're attempting to decenter them, that doesn't mean their behavior has stopped. That doesn't mean that the issues that we're dealing with have like magically gone away, you know? All right, sorry y'all, I'm so behind on the comments. Lots of great comments here. Let's see. Kaylani says, men will never admit that they actually strongly dislike us because they need us. They are not complete by themselves. Totally. And that's part of the reason why like women have not been able to decenter men, because it's like men can't, what is there for men if there's no women, right? But how do men guarantee access to women? They have to control the resources. They have to be centered. Like it's the simplest math, you know? Joy 1000 says he lost his mind when I started decentering him. And that's why I'll never stop talking about decentering men. It's worth it just to watch them lose their mind as women start to actually, you know, catch on to all the bullshit. Okay, let's see. Obviously, Cecilia Regina is on the short list for our podcast. I mean, like, if she reached out and was like, let's do it tomorrow, I would get everybody into a recording room stat. You know what I mean? She's obviously on the short list. We love her. She's leaving TikTok. Don't love that, but I also could see why. Like, TikTok is a very fickle mistress. You know what I mean? I'm using TikTok right now as more of a way to like shore up, to like have a presence, you know, to have a presence in this space still, because it's just so much easier to gather an audience. At the same time though, the problem with that is that you gather an audience and then TikTok doesn't show them any of your videos ever again, unless their algorithm already leans toward that content. And so I hope that she's leaving to go to YouTube or something where I think she could make freaking bank. Like, I've been trying to tell her this. So yeah, I will hate to see her go, but I don't blame her. Okay, Moonlight says flawed villain is not intersectional though. So that, I did see like little bits of that here and there, or I did see like bits of the drama. Apparently people were calling flawed villain out for using a term that Cecilia Regina coined. And this is why, like, it's important to be intersectional. Like, if you are listening, I say this all the time, but if you're listening to white women content creators and absolutely absolutely zero of their content speaks of like intersectionality and doesn't draw the parallels between the oppression of the patriarchy and the oppression of white supremacy, then they will probably like fail really hard one day. Like they will face plant into some bad rhetoric. That is what it is. Because when people do not see this same exact parallels, and when white women do not realize that they are the white men of women, it's easy for that stuff to happen. It's just very easy because you have to be aware of it, right? This is why we say it's all men until it's not all men. This is why we like literally actively talk about decentering men, because some of us have been centered for too long and we're lost in our own sauce. You know what I mean? And a lot of white, and I'm holding out hope, obviously, for flawed villain. I hate to see, you know, the kind of eating alive of that happens to women when they make certain missteps or when they, you know, kind of fall into some of these more common like pitfalls being a white woman content creator. I'm definitely holding out hope. And I'm just hoping that there will be like education and all of that. And I think it's important to have humility, and it's important to just listen. Like, if I always know that I'm wrong, if like a bunch of women are in my comments being like, for real, please, like, this is not it, this is not the take, you're like mishearing the message, you know? When it's like everybody, I try to listen, especially when it's like women of color. Yep. Sailor Doom, and that's why it's all white people till it's no white people. Absolutely. Absolutely. Still says, why are women being pitted against each other? That is the question. But sometimes, you know what I mean? Sometimes it is an honest call out. And the thing that you should do with that is just be like, whoop, like, my bad. Like, here you go. You know, credit to. It's literally that easy. I mean, the second time I ever spoke on Shira 7, because I had made like a positive video about her, like when I very first started out on TikTok. I had made a video about her just saying like, these are the new dating standards, like da da da. And then somebody like later on, a couple months down the road, asked me, like, what do you think about her advice? And like, what do you think about like women following that advice? And I went off and I was like, you know what? You're going to be like a trad wife for free. You're going to do all this crap. You know, you're going to depend on a man. I went off, right? And there was a lot of women in my comments agreeing with me, but it was split like 60-40, and people were saying that's not her message, that's not what she says, that's not like at all the advice she would give. She has a whole book called I Bring Nothing to the Table, whatever. And I had to have a little moment and call myself out and eat crow. And a lot of creators are afraid to do that, and it's like, y'all, I promise you it's not that scary. Just imagine that you brought something up to a man that he had no idea he was doing, right? Because he never stopped to examine his own behavior. What do you want him to do? Like, what would you want him to? Would you want him to keep arguing with you and like justifying to you why he did it and why it was actually okay? Or would you like him to just stop, full stop, think about it, acknowledge it, and take responsibility? Is it that easy? Yes. Does it seem hard? Yes. Does it feel good? No. But you got to do it. That's the work, you know? It's about how you react to the criticism. Self-growth journey. Yeah, self-growth journey says, yeah, I've disagreed with you a lot and you haven't blocked me yet, so I respect you. I get it, you know? Some of this stuff is like, I've been a teacher, you know what I mean? So I really view this space as like I want to make it a safe space to disagree. I want to make it a safe space to like even have strong feelings about things, right? As long as it doesn't cross the line of like actual disrespect and like, or hate, of like actual disrespect and like, or hateration, right? I don't really, you know, I'm willing to chop it up. I think women need to be better about this, because here's the other thing. Whenever men like offend each other and one of them has the balls to like talk about it and like bring it up and like, you know, have it out with the other dude, that other dude is always going to be like, yeah, bro, my bad, bro. Like, I'm telling y'all, like, if we want to defeat the patriarchy, we have to take a page out of their playbook. Because I hate, and I'm going to hate to say this, but the whole like 100 women versus accountability, I would put a white in front of that, women. But yes, 100 white women versus accountability, please. I want to see that. I want to see that. And then, because then it gets turned into women are being pitted against each other. But when there's a white woman involved, it's not that simple. It's not always that simple, because sometimes white women are just being obstinate and they're being, you know, there's this like, and to be clear, this is no longer me talking about flawed villain. This is just me addressing things in general. I don't want this to come across as this like very heavy-handed criticism, because again, I haven't seen the comments yet. I've only seen some of her videos responding to the situation, and I thought this might come up in my live, and yeah, so I don't know like too much about the situation yet to make like a judgment call. Not that it's really even my place, but all right. Andy says, I feel like the call is coming from inside the house because we need to inform each other. Absolutely. Yeah, we have a responsibility to make it right, and we have to mention men. Yeah, that's my whole thing, is like, also a lot of women think that they've decentered men because they're like celibate or they're like not dealing with men. That does not mean you have decentered men. That means you, or like, it doesn't even necessarily mean that you've centered yourself, right? You still have to put forth energy to like avoid men at all costs. So to me, it's kind of like, if we are forced to share the planet with these people, we have to learn how to decenter them to their face, right? I totally respect and understand wanting to remove yourself from the situation, and I support strongly the women that want to do that. But I will say this, I saw the best video today, and this woman was saying like, why are people saying that like misandrous shouldn't be dating men or whatever? Like, who else is gonna like fix them? Who else is gonna like, she literally said, I've seen the work that the rest of y'all are doing and it's not good enough. Like, yeah, we have to learn to decenter men loudly. We have to like inform them that they've been decentered, because otherwise like the unnatural flow of things that they've set up is, it all leads, you know, the downstream all leads to the patriarchy. And if we stop swimming against the current, then guess what? We're just being taken with it. Okay, we have some comments. Let's see. So Cozy, centering yourself versus decentering men. I don't think it's versus. I think as you decenter men, you will more naturally center yourself. That's the point. The point is, if there is like, think of it as like a plant that's being suffocated by weeds, right? The plant can center itself, right? The plant can be like, I want to grow, motherfucker, right? I want to prosper, and I'm ready to get out there. And the whole time it's like, why am I not prospering? Why am I not getting out there? Why am I not growing? Well, because there's weeds. There's weeds choking you out. And I'm telling y'all, as somebody that went through this already, y'all act like this is all brand new every fucking time. Anyone that's been on the internet, you know, anything that's not widely documented on the internet, and also like, if people don't remind some of y'all that this has already happened, you'll just forget, right? Because once again, I will reiterate that as a millennial, I was raised to quote unquote center myself and be a boss babe, okay? And where did most of us end up? Exactly. And where are we right back at? Square one. Milkmaid dresses at the club. We were wearing business wear, but it's not any less male-centered, right? Because we were trying to prove to the men that we're boss babes, you know? When it's really what we should have been more talking about is, why are we trying to prove anything to men, right? that would have been the proper way to decenter men, but we would have had to talk about them first, right? So it's really a psyop. It really is. If you don't realize it, but it is. Because y'all don't realize that the world is literally built for men. So for you to center yourself in that world, there's literally traps laid out all along that path for you to fall into. Don't be crazy. Y'all can like the milkmaid dresses. What's the appropriate context to wear a milkmaid dress though? Like, I love, honestly, y'all, like, my favorite type of fashion is the, like, hyper feminine, frilly stuff. It's just not made for my body type, unfortunately. I got big ass shoulders, and it just doesn't look good, doesn't look right on me. I love it. I'd never wear that shit to the club, though. Just if I'm thinking logically, like, what am I gonna do in that at the club? That seems like it's just gonna get in the way. Like, don't waste your club wear days and time on a milkmaid dress. Does that make sense? Like, you should have your ass out. I don't know. It's the club. Like, okay, let's see. Lululemon says, I think all this decentering men content is just a dopamine addiction at this point. I think the dopamine, I see what you're saying, but I think that is it's a validation addiction because women are made to feel so invalidated when they bring this stuff up, right? We think that everybody knows this, right? Us in our this little corner of the internet, we think everybody knows this. Guys, nobody knows this. That's the secret. Like, nobody really knows this. Even on like Love Island last night, there was a couple and the girl in the couple was talking about, man, like men are so scary. Like you just never know what they're going to do next. And her boyfriend was like, what? Who? What are men like? Huh? What are you talking about? Like the most punchable conversation ever. I've never wanted to run up to a conversation and punch, honestly, both people in the face. But that's how men, like when you bring up, yeah, I'm talking about Huda's man. Thank you. Thank you, my Taurus friend. I love me a Taurus. Unless it's Jeremiah. That man needs to be voted off the island for real. Oh, thank you, Aries. Yeah, exactly. Common sense on this topic is not that common in real life. Sailor Doom says, I'm burned out on men. Just came to ask if we're calling out villain as white women. Sailor Doom, were you not? I thought you were here for that bit of the conversation. I have to call out white women creators all the time on this app. And here's my thing. The reason I never call anybody out by name or anything like that is because it becomes like about just one white woman and it absolves all other white women of like the responsibility that they have to not do the same shit. So I usually will just call it out like in general and people know who I'm talking about, but I do refuse to put a name to it because I don't think that's helpful. And I want those women to kind of like still stay in the fold because divided we are weaker. Together we're stronger. Like we do have to call each other out. But yeah, Naya says, reminds me of man repelling makeup. If you're making decisions based on a man, you're still centering them. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Banksy. That's so beautiful. Y'all are so sweet. Sailor Doom, the clear answer is like white women are going to F up. That's the thing. And white women that don't speak on intersectionality, like all throughout their content, when they don't like see the parallels between the patriarchy and white supremacy, because they're the same exact thing, they're just packaged differently. And when people don't call that out, they're gonna do shit like this. That's all I can tell you. It comes from ignorance, and the best thing you can do is like educate them. But that's one thing, like you have to watch for that blind spot, you know? And I'm all for like decentering men content. I'm all for like, you know, that's what my content is. But I just think that if you don't end up seeing the parallels, like especially because I know that there's Black women in everybody's comments, like not just mine. There's Black women in everybody's comments saying that this is how it feels to be a Black woman too, right? This is how it feels around white women. This is how, or like, this is exactly how white supremacy works. So it's like, it doesn't, it's, you just have to listen, right? And when I, first started making like this type of content, And then I started talking about intersectionality because I have always felt like it was necessary. I took my first like gender studies class when I was about 17. And the instructor I had was a woman of color. She wasn't a Black woman, but she was very, very, very much into like intersectionality and discussing white supremacy and how that overlaps with patriarchy. It immediately clicked for me, and I was like, oh, well, I should just be talking about this too, because they're basically the same thing. And if we want to take down the patriarchy, we're going to have to take these other systems down with it. Like, it's not going to come down by itself. Like, all of these structures, these hierarchical things help to keep each other up. It's you know, a lot of times we think of things as a triangle, but it really is like a pyramid, right? And it has like all these different sides, and you have to, that's the hard work, is you have to root them all out at once, because if you leave one up, there's still room to rebuild. And you're going to be doing that over and over and over, because it's the hierarchy that's the problem, right? And a lot of women overlook that because they make this whole thing about women versus men, when it's really all of us versus the patriarchy. The men just don't know it yet, right? Or they make it, you know, a lot of white women creators have this feeling when they get called out, and takes one to know one, right? That feeling is they're against me, you know, it's, I'm trying to do this thing for women, but you know, these Black women are in my comments like attacking me, like whatever. And it's like, you know what I mean? And it becomes a Black women versus white women thing, right? And this is where I was calling out like other content creators prior to the election, because they were saying like, because White Women Whisper said, white women, just make sure you're not done supporting Kamala Harris after the Zoom call, right? And one content creator said, well, like, what more do you want us to do? Like, we raised money, we got on the Zoom, like, that's more than white women have done historically. Like, what more do you want us to do? And that's just how it plays out. It starts feeling like a, you know, you versus them kind of thing, when it's like the same reason we try to call men into toppling the patriarchy with us, but they just don't listen because they feel like we're just attacking them, when it's like, we're not just attacking you. But somebody trying to point something out that you are even unwittingly a part of, like, you should take that into consideration, especially when they're on the other side of that problem and they know how this shit plays out all the time. And so to me, it's like, if somebody feels safe enough with me to call something like that out, or if somebody thinks that I will like even listen to that, that's like a compliment to me, you know, because like, you know better than I do. And so why would I listen to me and not you, who's actually having that experience, you know? And like, to a point, right? But like, that's what it is. Lululemon asks, what are your thoughts on egalitarianism as opposed to matriarchy? It's kind of like saying all lives matter and like closing the book. Does that make sense? Like, if you were to say, yeah, no, like, men and women are like equal now, like, you're kind of like disregarding years and years and years of oppression and centering men versus women. And once again, this goes for, the parallels are exact with the white supremacy. And it's like, we need to focus right now on people that have been oppressed, right? Because why? Because it's like, yeah, two wrongs don't make a right. That's for sure. But what is it going to take to undo systemic oppression and centuries of like certain people being centered? You tell me, right? If you were to put these things on a scale, what would actually balance the scale, right? Would there be some type of reparation needed? Yes, because certain people have been held back, right? Held back by force. You know, sometimes even their lives were taken, right? Like, they were used. I mean, like, it's crazy to say that, like, oh, now let's just call it equal and call it a day. Like, okay. And yeah, what will we replace the system with isn't important when we're not even close to the finish line. Absolutely. Sure, undo it, but then we should look to implement and continue on instead of dwelling on the past. So what would that look like? And also, you have to realize that the past literally creates the future. So, and we can't jump straight ahead to a future. Do you know what I mean? There has to be a past that predates that future that we want, okay? Let me try to explain this to you, right? If you say, yeah, you can't dwell on the past, it's continuously repeat. That's what I'm saying. If you don't actually dwell on the past, you're gonna repeat it every single time. This is what I'm telling you. This is why the whole like, is decentering men content actually centering men? This already happened. This happened while I was alive, while I was a teenager, right? Is everybody said this was after like the free the nipple movement and like burning the bras and everything, right? This was after the 90s like empowerment and all that. It came right back and said, why are you ladies talking about men? You should be a boss babe. You should be female empowerment. You need to go to work, and then you need to, you know what I mean? And we were right back to the patriarchy. Now we're where we're at right now because of that. And so if we say, okay, let's make a brighter future, that can only be based on the past. Like, I don't know how to explain this to y'all, but if we don't repeat and memorize different patterns, we are going to repeat the patterns we already know. Okay? That's why a lot of times it takes people 7 tries to get out of an addiction or an abusive relationship, right? We're way past that. You know what I mean? And because we're not learning from it, we just keep repeating, oh, this is white guilt. Y'all just want to make white people feel guilty every time. Well, y'all just want to make men feel guilty. You know, men gave you your rights. That's what it sounds like, you know? That's what it sounds like. It just sounds like, you know, when white people say this shit, it's just like, okay. Yeah, like, is decentering, like, whiteness content actually centering it? You know, like, that's a stupid question. So how do we get ahead of it? So that's what I'm saying. You have to get ahead of it by balancing the scales. You have to tip the scale, right? Because it's like, you also have to realize you're gonna have like early adopters, and then you're gonna have like people are going to fight against like new ideas. That's just is what it is. You know, we had, mind you, the same year, it was less than a year after the Barbie movie that Donald Trump got elected. And we all, a lot of us, especially myself, a white woman included, were celebrating in that theater like we fucking won. And only for Donald Trump to be elected the very next, like months later. Literally what that movie predicted. Mind you, the other thing about the Barbie movie that should have really told us we were still living in the fucking patriarchy and dug into it even more is that at the Oscars, who was it all about? It was literally the Ryan Gosling show. It was literally the Ken show. It had Ken everywhere in big bright letters, and he was performing the damn song. Do y'all know how, like, that, I lost all my faith that day. I was like, this is too ironic. This is too funny. Like, is honestly all you can do is laugh at this point, because people are continuously forgetting the fucking past, right? Because people were like, oh yeah, Ken, that's the real, we're repeating the past. We're centering a man in a women's movement. And that's what fucking happens when we forget that it's all about decentering men, right? Because if people were thinking with their noggin, they would have said, why the fuck is Ryan Gosling performing? Why is he performing? Even if he is performing, why would it say Ken behind him? Why wouldn't it be the Barbie movie? Why wouldn't it, you know? Yeah, Ryan was the star. That's what I'm saying. PW says, am I centering men or am I ovulating? I would like to tell you, I think I might have reposted it. One of my favorite, and this is a real gem, so listen up. One of my favorite creators on here goes by Sedona Violet, and she just made a video about this, that you don't even have to center men during your ovulation, right? The fact that women can have multiple O's, like a day, an hour, you know, a half hour even, which helps to fertilize and like make, you know, whatever. She's like, that means you're supposed to be riding D like a pogo stick that whole week. You know, and you're not supposed to center a man, right? You're supposed to use men for whatever your evolutionary purposes are, right? You can still decenter men. Yeah, and that's the thing. So Lululemon says, I'm personally so mad about all the romantic movie / Disney film programming I watched as a kid. It's complete nonsense and nearly ruined my teen years. So Lululemon, that's exactly why I was saying what I'm saying, right? The men, do you see how forcefully they center themselves, right? We had one movie where it was like, oh, women are badass and they're powerful and like they can totally defeat men and like all this stuff. And the men said, fuck no, right? They immediately were like, what? They were like, you fucking thought we're gonna vote in a man who literally raped multiple women and was found guilty of it. We're literally going to vote a felon into office because y'all dared to imagine a world where women are centered and men are just an accessory. And Ken, right? That really got them deep in their fucking feels, you know? And they've been in their feelings ever fucking since. And so it's like that's why we need to decenter them, because every time we try to center ourselves, they're like, whack, you know? It's like whack-a-mole. Ellie, no. Ellie. I'm so sorry. And it happens. And I can't even say that I would be any better. I can't. I really can't. Like, it fucking sucks. Because they're liars and manipulators. Allie, I hope you're okay with me sharing this with the class. She says, I thought I decentered men, but recently was humbled and turned into a pick-me, and he was terrible. I feel super ashamed I still was like that. I feel like, thank you, Kiwi. I feel like Huda is about to go through this in real time in front of all of us. So, you know, it happens. It happens. Watermelon, it's cool. I know the comment section is effing terrible. Yeah. And this is how, so Ali says, I know I thought I was cured, but got triggered into falling for the triangulation and being exceptional. And yeah, absolutely. This is like one of their favorite tricks, you know, is the you're not like other girls and like, you know, you can fix me, that kind of thing. Yeah, they love to prey on and humble powerful women. They really do. And that's why I don't ever want y'all falling for the whole like feminine masculine propaganda, because that is exactly how men will trap you. Thank you, Anya. That's how they do it. They present themselves as like something that they think women want, and then like they paint a picture for you, right? And you get attached to that idea versus any of their actions, versus, you know, your better judgment. And it is what it is. I mean, if women were out here lying to men like this, you know what I mean? The problem is you don't even have to lie to men, because they know they still have the societal power. Like, that's why it's like I'm all for women, quote unquote, getting their bag with, you know, SW, especially if it's something like OnlyFans that doesn't put you in physical danger. But at the end of the day, it's like, and what have you achieved? You know what I mean? I don't know. Don't come for me, but I'm not a huge proponent of like SW, because I think that if SW still exists, then we haven't abolished anything that we need to abolish. I support the hustle, absolutely. Donna says, did you hear about Cecilia Regina and her content? I wonder which part you're talking about, the fact that she might leave TikTok. I support her in that. TikTok is a psyop. Okay. They literally will take money out of your pocket, like, just so that y'all know. I had, so on my payout for May, on my payout for May, I had a certain amount that I'm supposed to receive around the 15th. And I was checking my creator rewards program, and that amount just all of a sudden, like, May is over, mind you. And that amount is all of a sudden like $200 less. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I go back through, and they just randomly disqualified one of my like higher earning videos for that. And I had to appeal it, and I won the appeal, but they're like, oh, now you're going to get paid out for it like some other time. Or like my video about the girl's girl that got 2.1 million views. They tried to disqualify that too, because it was quote unquote vulgar, and I had to fight and appeal that. So yeah, I would also say F TikTok, because with the amount of followers that she has and like how her content should be like getting pushed out way more, I don't blame her for being extremely frustrated. Because I bet like her and I make a similar amount of money, even though I have half the followers. Ash, you're so right. Lots of girls were getting into spirituality, and femme versus mask energy was an easy way for misogyny to infiltrate young girls' brains. Exactly. That's why I'm saying it's like internalized misogyny too. And until you decenter men, you'll never get rid of the internalized misogyny, right? Because where is it coming from? Men's jealousy. Okay, listen to our latest podcast episode on this. Male jealousy, it's a real thing, okay? I'm also like heartbroken to see Cecilia go. It's like the end of an era. Ali says, I hope Flawed Villain gives Cecilia credit. It was disappointing to see her defensive. I was disappointed too, honestly. Cecilia has a book coming out. That's amazing. I will be buying it. Cecilia Regina, I hope that y'all will find her on YouTube and buy her book and all that. And I certainly hope she's not leaving because of this recent thing with Flawed Villain. I don't think she is. It is disappointing to see somebody get defensive rather than just be like, sorry, like if everyone's telling you that's where they first heard it, just give the credit. It's not that hard. Thanks, user 122333. Ash says male jealousy is undeniable. We're pregnant. Well, I helped make my kids too. Sir, your kids could have been made from jizz in a cup. Like, don't be so cocky. We are so past that. I helped make my... No, you didn't. No, the fuck you didn't. And that's kind of the whole point. Vesper says, doesn't Flawed Villain get a lot of points also from Princella? I mean, we all do. She's kind of the mother of all this content. And I'm sure people will correct me on that and say that somebody else is. I don't know. All I know is right before I started making my content, or right around the time, that's when I started listening to like Shira and Princella and stuff like that. But a lot of what I was talking about, I just gathered from like reading Reddit posts and stuff and like picking up on patterns, watching reality TV, reading nonfiction, things like that. But yeah, I always make sure to give credit to Princella whenever I say something that I know for a fact she has said before. So I think we all should give credit, especially when it comes to Black women. But there's like, you know, Mel Hamlet coined the term king baby, right? And maybe that term had been coined elsewhere before, okay? But the reason we all know it is because Mel Hamlet has made so much content, right? Around this, like around all this. You know, like anyone who's making like Sex and the City content, like that's Cecilia Regina, that she owns that show. Okay. She was the director, the creative producer, the fucking writer's room. That's her show. Okay. Nobody knows that show better than she does. And like, you'll never convince me that people doing like, you know, deep dives into certain television series and stuff, like that wasn't inspired by her. Black women are always the blueprint. That's why I like don't even like to say anything without like giving that credit or pointing out the parallels or saying anything like that, because it is very clear where the rest of us get our ideas. Okay, like let's not do that. Syrian Sage, I love that. I'm so glad. We need like women in all age groups making this type of content. That's why like I will always shout out Mel, you know, I always shout out Therese, because these women know things that I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they've lived, it's that experience. And so they can speak to things. Soul So Bright says, I love Princella, but her content isn't resonating like it used to. You know, I think that's because she's on to the second part of her curriculum, which addresses like women's role in upholding the patriarchy. And I was kind of down on her recent content too, but I do think that she has laid out this curriculum. And the first part of it was deconstructing the patriarchy and how men uphold the patriarchy. And in her latest video addressing all this, this is what she said. And I, you know, can't really be mad anymore, because she was like, you know, in the same way that the men were screaming, crying, and throwing up when I was holding up the mirror to them, now the women are doing the same thing, screaming, crying, throwing up. So, you know, I would just like to point out that she has a plan, and, you know, maybe let's just hear her out. But I did not like her take on Cassie. I didn't. I think you can go too hard in the paint. Cecilia, yes, thank you. So she popularized Shut Up Ring, Married Single Mothers, Humiliation Ritual. She popularized also like the Lonely Wife series, right? She popularized, there's so many things. She's literally the blueprint. Like I still remember the credenza days, okay? I still remember the completely, you know, the demographic. Yeah, like that's not for me, but it's very funny. She's a fucking, oh, there's literally nobody I stand more than that woman. Love her, and she is the blueprint. And I have to actively try to like not copy her, because like her shit's just that good. She's amazing. Doesn't Priscilla promote bioessentialism, which is inherently anti-trans? Yeah, probably she does. I actually would not be surprised at all. I think there's room for everybody. I think I don't like to go the bioessentialist route. Obviously, I'm married to a man, so if I really thought men were beyond all help and like all, you know, they were just born a certain way. And I think it's really ironic that, you know, it's sometimes is the people you least expect that are the most like exclusionary, because Princella is a member of the LGBTQ community. So it's right there in the name, right? She's also a part of another community that has been targeted by bioessentialism. Oh, I find it surprising that she would go down that path. I think we could have room for everybody and with enough nuance, right? But I do think Princella is a lay dollar bean. She is fully lay dollar bean. So yeah, she has kids and stuff that she had with a man. She was married before, but she is no longer. So I find it really weird that she's like against people in her own community and that she would espouse a rhetoric that has targeted people of her skin color. Like, I think that's weird, but hey. Okay, yeah, let's shout out some other content creators. Amber Akila, Allie, you're gonna love this. We're gonna have her on the podcast very soon. And by very soon, I mean it's probably gonna be like September or August, but she's on the short list. Like, we just have Fleeksy booked, and then I'm booking Amber like immediately after. So Bourbon Bougie is where I heard the wife appliance. Yes, and I always quote that, and I always say Bourbon Bougie because here's the other thing. Bourbon Bougie makes freaking amazing content. And after being on TikTok for like a few months doing the same type of content that she does, I had more followers than her. You know what I mean? There's so much. I look around at like the Black women content creators that I follow, and I'm like, your follower count is criminal. It's criminally low. The way that your videos get pushed out is criminally bad, you know? And, you know, even like me and Sovereign, like when she was making content all day, every day, like it just wasn't paying off quite the same. And it's just, that is what it is. My friend Shar Henley, her video that she made on election day, or like the day after election day, that was like, ladies, here's what we're gonna do. Like, I still remember the intro, like the video banged and they took it down with no explanation. That's like hundreds of dollars out of her pocket. In fact, it probably was close to $1,000 out of her pocket for that. So, Sessa says, hey mom, I broke up with my boyfriend yesterday. First of all, I'm sorry. I know that was not easy. Know that I love you. Know that you've made the best choice for yourself. No good relationship has ended in a breakup. Okay. I actually love it when people break up. And I think, you know, I had doubts about breaking up with my first like long-term boyfriend. If I hadn't done that, I would not be with my husband. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have centered myself. I would have just continued, because the wrong man will always have you centering him one way or another. And so that I'm really glad that like you broke up with him, because it sounds like you needed to, you know what I mean? Like, I know it wasn't an easy choice, but typically by the time a woman gets around to breaking up with a man, he has done some shit. Okay. So good job. Good job, baby. You got this. I know it's hard. Just know I'm sending you all the good vibes. But also, like, let's reframe it from being like hard. Like, it's gonna be hard because I want you to realize that it's gonna be hard because your magic and your presence is what even made this a viable situation. Does that make sense? It's like, for a lot of women, breaking up with a man is hard because you put all this effort and all this mental potential, you know, into this man. And I'm not saying you did this necessarily, but a lot of women fall in love with that potential, and they fall in love with the version of a man that they created in their head. And that's the hard part. You need to understand he was probably never any of that. And so it's a good thing. It's a good thing that you are getting away from that, because now you're more likely to find what you're actually looking for. And hopefully without having to craft a narrative around like a man's potential. You need to just find your own potential. All right, y'all. I gotta hop off of here and make a couple of videos before dinner time. But thank you so much for being here, y'all. Just sending all of y'all my love. Thank you, Sessa. Thank you, baby. Really appreciate you. All right. Love you, ladies. I'll see you next time.